Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at Book 4 in the Lone Wolf series by Joe Dever called The Chasm of Doom, which has my favorite action scenes in it. There's a siege in here that's a lot of fun in the original source material. It's the fourth of the first 5 book series. In the Kai series, the next 7 books that take you all the way to 12. Will also push forward another story. This one kind of concludes the story and pushes you to the next level. You now become a Kai master at the end of this storyline. A few years will pass. You'll begin to develop as a Grand Master in the next series. So this is the penultimate book in the first series of 5 books, if you will. It's a mid-80s book. We're looking at the definitive edition, which I will link to you on Magnamon Press below, which is where you can buy it straight from the retailer. The definitive editions for the first 5 books were just released a couple months ago, and I wanted to go ahead and pick them up. They just arrived, and while I was finishing up and doing my last day of reading in the Harold Shea series, so I wanted to knock these out. They're pretty quick. I think this one was like 2 hours last night. Pretty quick and stuff. These things and this series and this author are major impacts in my life. In fact, I put them in my own personal Appendix N, based on Gary Gygax's 1979 Appendix N of key influences in early Dungeons and Dragons, and they are also a key influence in my life too. And I'll link you to my review where I look at my Appendix N, and it's one of my top 10 most influences. In fact, based on this, I actually wrote for free a game book you can play on a website called frontofficefootball.com. It's in the Dynasties section because I liked it that much, and I enjoyed it. So I just created a free game book for people to play as part of a character that I created for a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So that was pretty cool. It's definitely influential. This game book series is a lot different than a lot of others. It's one of the best-selling game book series of all time. It's sold a lot of books over time. It's got 32. It was intended to have 32 books in the series. It stopped at 28 after the game book craze was over with, and several books have been published since then. One by Joe Dever, and then after his death, a couple by his son Ben. Ben is also one of the editors for this book too. So he's written a ton of stuff. It was key influences, and one of the things that really made it a key part of a lot of people's experience is that it's telling an overall arching story. For example, in the first book, the Kai monastery that you are a part of is attacked by these big bads. It's ambushed as the beginning of a new war that hasn't happened for centuries by nearby bad guys called the Dark Lords, who live in the nation of Heldigad, and they launch an attack. And so the first book in the definitive edition, they've changed it up, but in the original book, you start on the first section, the destruction of Kai Monastery, and you were away from it, so you're the only survivor. And then you set out to try in this brand new, now dark country that you used to have. You got to go to the capital and find the king and let him know what's happening, because he was relying on the Kai lords for a counter strike, and now that can't happen. And it's a problem. So that's the first book. Then the second book, you get sent, because the Kai aren't there anymore, you need to get the Deus Ex Machina that can destroy Dark Lords, called the Summer Sword. It's a nasty artifact, a good guy sword, so you got to go to a couple of countries next door to their capital. You're being hounded and tracked and journeyed, and will be attacked by a lot of bad guys along your way, and also on the way back. So it's a quest for an artifact, which you'll keep. Moving forward, the third book, previous book that I just reviewed for you, the key concept is that the traitor who betrayed you guys has fled to the icy wastelands of Cult, and so you're going to flee out there and capture him and bring him back to justice, and that's the third book. In this book, a captain of the Royal Cavalry called Duval has been sent with some men to the southern Sutherland. They've gone missing, and now you are leading an expedition to go out there and find out what happened to them, because they were going out and exploring some things in Ronan. So now you're going to be going out there and finding out what's happening, and then when you find out what's happening, you're going to find out, and then you're going to have to stop the bad guys that are doing some really bad guy things. But what you find out, the super secret stuff, isn't that sexy or different than any other things that are out there. So this book, while it has my favorite combat scenes in it, there's a siege in there that I really like. It doesn't have a great plot to it. Once you find out what's actually happening, it's not a surprise. It doesn't go anywhere interesting, right? It's totally predictable about what's happening, and what you got to do to stop It feels a little pulpish. It feels like it's straight out of a pulp magazine. I do a lot of reading in pulp, so that I love the pulp era, but definitely feels pulpish. But if you like pulp still like me, then it's not a disadvantage. It's not a bad thing, but it just doesn't go anywhere new. So I'm giving this a 7 out of 10 rather than a higher ranking. Now, I would have given the original book, Flight from the Dark, a 6 out of 10 if I just reviewed it, because it's the first book. It's 50 sections shorter, and it's his first book, right? So it's a little new to writing, and in some places it's a little unevenly written in places, but it's fine. I would have given it a 6 out of 10, and then I would have given the rest of the books in that series in the first 5 7s out of 10s. But this book, the Flight from the Dark, which I'm showing you next to Chasm of Doom, book 4, this is book 1 here, has added hundreds of sections to it. It's a much longer read. The first few pages, the first few hours rather, are the siege of the Kai Monastery. You're now an active participant instead of just somebody who was sent away to go do some bad stuff because you were a bad guy. And so now you got to collect firewood, and then you go back and knock your head out on a branch, and you miss the siege, right? It doesn't feel very heroic. So it was rewritten and recast, and now you're a hero. You're a Kai initiate. You know 5 skills, right? You're a capable and competent person, right? And so since you're competent and capable, you're not knocking your head off, on an underhanging branch, right? You're competent and capable. So now you're a participant in the siege, and you're just the last survivor. And I like that change. And I think that, and adding all this extra stuff to it makes it an 8 out of 10 rather than a 6 it would have been previously. Well, this one doesn't add anything new. It's just 350 pages long. So it's only getting a 7 out of 10 rather than a higher number with all this extra content. Between the definitive edition, this one, or collector's editions that added additional adventures in these. For example, in one of these, if I remember correctly, you're adventuring as Banadon, a person you'll meet in the first book, and then you'll also meet him later. He's a key figure in book 5, actually, which will be next. The next book was published 50 sections longer with 2 adventures, 2 adventures of 200, rather. So it's got 2 parts and it's written in 2 books, but I'm just going to review it as 1 book next. My goal is to knock it out tonight. Your 10 skills that you can start with are, so you're basically a psychic ranger. And so your psychic skills are Sixth Sense, Mind Blast, Mind Shield, and Mind Over Matter. So you can attack people mentally, you can defend yourself against mental attacks, where you can move things with your mind, and you can sense things. And then you have 6 rangery skills. And those are tracking, which is obviously a rangery skill, weapon skill, so you can fight. Camouflage, so you can hide, hunting, so you can hunt things and stealthy move around, and the last 2 are healing, and then animal kinship. I went into this one and as you move on from one book to the other, you keep your character, you keep your skills, you just add another skill at the end of each adventure. And then you also will keep your combat skill, keep your endurance points, keep your items that you found. So once you get the Summer Sword in book 2, you keep it for the rest of the adventures, and so forth. And you'll collect things, for example, unless they're used later on during the things. Book 4 doesn't have anything major in it to get to your squad by now. I've got my padded waistcoat, I got my chainmail vest, I've got my shield, I've got my silver helmet, I got the silver helm, and I got the Summer Sword. I've got my various things that add to my combat skills or add to my endurance points, totals, and so forth. There is a skill in here called Healing, and Healing lets you heal 1 point of damage for each section that doesn't have combat in it. So in a longer book, like the first book's editions, it's nice. But there's a veterans challenge called only getting 10 from it in these books, and I've been taking that on, and I still survive. In this book, I took 11 before the major siege. I took 8 during the siege. I got healed 6 afterwards, so I've only taken 12. 2 after the 10 from healing, and then I only took like 3 more in the final battle, and that's it. So I only finished 5 down from my total roll, even with the cap of 10 from my total of 31, because I got some pieces of equipment that moved me up from my 26. I'm sorry, my 25 starting endurance. So that's how kind of it works, and it breaks down. Again, you get to keep your stuff, get to keep your skill stats, get to keep your skills, and you get another skill, and so forth. So there's a key reason for you to want to keep buying, keep investing in this overarching story.
that goes on for quite some time. And there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read Chasm of the Doom, or the definitive edition, or the collector's edition, or something like that? There is online for free called Project Aeon, which I will also link you to in case you just want to read it for free. He gave to us as a millennial gift, so you don't even have to buy this book. Although I think there's value in particularly getting a hardcover, because game books have a lot of wear and tear and soft cover, which is what it was originally published in the mid 80s. Because there's a lot of moving back and forth and back and forth. I read this version last night for a couple of hours, but the online version I think is probably shorter, because you don't have to turn from page to page, and obviously you want to beat up your book. But I do think there's value in picking up, a nice hardcover thing that'll survive in case Project Aeon's, money finances fall through, or something like that. You can still read these later. So I do think there's value. Also, I like the idea of contributing to somebody who's given so much to the world. He made his money, and then he's released all these things for free. So I like to continue to support that with the occasional purchase of a hardcover book here and there. So you can pick up the first 5 definitive editions. So again, the first book is a lot bigger, but it's also more expensive. When I went to go look it up, did some research on Magnum Press, it's also more expensive over in the UK. So once it came over, international shipping, I got it a couple of weeks ago. Now I've been knocking it out and doing a deep dive into it. And last night will be Shadow of the Sin, so we'll finish this there. And then I might stay with the non-definitive editions and then just knock out the rest, because I might just be in a lone wolf mold. And let's knock out the first, in the next 7 books. We'll see where we're at after tonight. Where I'm feeling after Shadow on the Sand. So there you are. I'll leave you to it. Once again, I keep my reviews spoiler free, so if you want to talk about reviews in the comments below, let's do it. If you like this video, hey, why not hit that subscribe button? There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that happen in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.